Good evening. My name is Namaki, and I am having the honor of making a presentation now to share some views with you with regards to technology and technology sharing. I will project some of my views in a number of transparencies, and these transparencies will show in the following screen. Now, the main argument I'm conveying, or I'm trying to convey here, is the need for an agreement, global agreement to share technology. Why is that? Because of several reasons. One of them is my own belief that technology will be the gold standard of tomorrow. We have references and indications to that effect. We have symptoms today, like, for example, the fact that global trade is following technology flows, or that emerging technologies are dividing the world into two halves, the technology halves and the technology have-nots, or that key technology players are dominating key economies. All of these are facts, and all of these are trends and indications and signals, that technology is having a profound impact on our world today. But tomorrow's situation, in my view, is going to be far worse, in the sense that technology assets will acquire a standard measure, and technology will be an asset to be hoarded by central banks, and that central banks are going to include them also in their national assets and reserves. Also, the fact that search for technology is going to be dominant, and that technology search and technology acquisition is going to be a source of conflict. Finally, country assets will be expressed in terms of technology parameters. Now that we are talking about that, but what kind of technologies and which technologies are we talking about? There are many key technologies that emerged in the course of the past few years, and today they're having a profound impact on our day-to-day work and impact on our future as well. Prime among those is artificial intelligence, that branch of computer science that deals with the simulation of human intelligent behavior. Artificial intelligence technologies aim at creating a mental capability almost similar to the human brain to reason, plan, solve problems, think abstractly, comprehend, and learn from experience. So artificial intelligence seen through these eyes could be looked at as a system with inputs, transformation, and outputs. In the inputs, we have neurons, the human brain neurons, but also artificial neurons, collected and corrected and construed by human beings. These neurons blend together with data, the second input, in order to go through a process of transformation. That transformation could be of the learning type, but there could be also transformation of the analytical type. In learning, we come across machine learning and deep learning. In analysis, we, of course, come across analytics in all kinds and varieties. Finally, artificial intelligence provides or delivers insights. The insights are of different varieties, but next to that, we have technologies and subsystems. Artificial intelligence is able to do whatever it does thanks to big data. Big data is an input in artificial intelligence, and it's bits and pieces of bytes which we combine, and comes in all kinds of forms and varieties. You have structured big data, the semi-structured big data, the unstructured big data, and it's the input in machine and deep learning. Now, big data delivers technologies once it is integrated within the artificial intelligence framework. It delivers technologies going all the way from speech recognition and machine learning platforms to decision management, deep learning platforms, and biometrics. So artificial intelligence, big data are complemented by what we call Internet of Things, which is a network of physical objects that contain embedded technology to communicate and sense or interact with their internal states or the external environment. A fascinating phenomenon that will mean a lot of change in the way we do and approach things. And then there is fintech, or the software and hardware infrastructure of the finance, capital and finance industry. And then we have also the 5G, the wide bandwidth and antenna technology that will enable sharp increase in volumes of data transmitted over wireless systems. And then, of course, we come to the very exciting virtual reality development, which is transforming how people engage with machines, data, and each other. And business are using it in a mixed reality sense in order to identify consumer trends and demands. And then the very last technology, but certainly not the least, and one of the many which are emerging now, is computer vision, which involves systems' ability to identify items, places, objects, or people from visual images. And those are collected by a camera or a sensor. And the very last dominant technology that's going to change a lot of the premises that we have been talking about so far is the quantum computing. Quantum computing is the ability to process and analyze big data. It is key in leveraging machine learning and the power of the artificial intelligence. Now, we have all these technologies coming and going and emerging and disappearing, but what is the consequence? The consequence is actually almost startling. The consequence is that we have a technology industry that's dominating the global economy. How is that? It does that through concentration. We see all types of concentration. We see investment, technology investment concentration. We see player concentration. A few players led by Microsoft, Amazon, and Apple are leading the industry in terms of R&D, but also in terms of capitalization. Look at, if we turn to the R&D, there is a concentration of those players in different countries. And when you look carefully, you find that the United States is number one in terms of that concentration, and China is number two. But behind those, you have Korea, India, and South Korea, India, and Japan. And of course, other up and coming countries, in different other parts of the world. But the R&D concentration, the size of R&D concentration is highest in the United States and in China, and to a lesser extent in Japan, Germany, and South Korea. Now, the other aspect of concentration is country bound. Countries, there are two countries in the world today dominating the concentration scene of technology. They are China and the United States. And you can see that very clearly in terms of publications and in terms of size of investment, but also in terms of users. In China, there are 583 million people who pay through their phones, and they are also contributing to internet in multiple of other methods, that are making, China one of the leading in artificial intelligence application. And then, of course, there is the communication channels. There is a communication concentration. Google owns quite a volume of undersea cables that carry the big data and the outcome of big data analysis across the globe. You can see that in this diagram, and you can see the lines running around, the globe carrying the information and carrying with it the stamp of Google as a carrier. And then another concentration area is political power. Technology is increasingly used as a sanction, either through prohibition or conditionalities. attach conditions to the use of technology, and then the technology is not being accessible or usable anymore. Now, what's the implication of all of that? There are dire consequences for this concentration. The technology industry concentration is having dire short and long-term consequences. In the short term, we have few corporations deciding the industry status, whether it is technology or some other industries. We have countries competing for leadership, two countries, the United States and China, and the competition is taking Eurasia's form. You have narrow research focus determined by the self-interest of those major players. And you have high entry barriers, not allowing any competitors to come in. And finally, we have dark practices, which imply the theft and the hijacking of technologies from one operator to the other, or one country to the other. And of course, in long term, we will have the divide between the haves and have-nots. And we may go back then to the third world concept of yesterday, with a third world without technology and a first world with the technology. Now, the corona has amplified that. The vicious virus induced pharmaceutical companies in the United States, Germany, in Britain, and in Holland to go and search for a virus competent. Now, they did that, and they did that with considerable help, by the way, from governments. The United States government supported Pfizer. The Dutch government supported Janssen. The German government supported Pfizer. A lot of that money has gone into the pockets of those pharmaceutical companies. But as soon as they developed the vaccine, they started playing a game of their own, a game of limiting supplies, a game of limiting access to basic data, a game of rechanneling supplies to other destinations, a game of pricing, setting high prices for supplies, negotiating the prices as they did with the Dutch government, or even a game of takeover, as Johnson & Johnson, took over Janssen in the Netherlands, when they smelled that Janssen is having the single jab vaccine. The problem here is that those corporations started resorting to some regulations in WTO that prevent access to their intellectual property and protect them as well. And TRIPS, that's the WTO segment that guarantees patent protection, was resorted to and referred to as a modem for the protection. Now, and the type of intellectual property that TRIPS covers is quite wide. It goes all the way from copyright and related rights to trademarks, geographical indications, industrial designs, patents, layout designs, and other information and trade secrets. Now, WTO members then started resisting any trend or demand for access to the patent. South Africa and India called for a waiver for all members of certain provisions of the TRIPS agreement. And they said vaccine policy is economic policy because the global economic recovery cannot be sustained without the vaccines. And we got President Biden, issuing that statement and expressing interest into a waiver that would allow access to the patents. But the European Union decided to sit on the fence and prefer not to share any patents. And of course, Bill Gates refused outright. Now, how to deal with that in the longer term? The only way to deal with it is an agreement among like-minded countries to share technologies. That's the only road towards a fair global growth. Now, this kind of agreement could be signed by, as I said, like-minded countries, and I personally hope that that will be done. That would be an agreement that would imply sharing patent pools, patent commons, open source innovation, open licensing arrangement, non-assertion pledges or confidence, and other vehicles. Now, who can do that? It requires a lot of political courage and economic courage as well. My hope is that countries like China, South Africa, India, maybe even Brazil would take the initiative into signing an agreement of this nature. But those are the users. We need the providers of the technology. We need countries like the United States, Germany, the Netherlands, maybe Britain as well. And these countries cooperate. Russia, by the way, also. These countries cooperate in a mode of exchange of these technology patents for the sake of economic sustenance and global growth without the threat of other factors, but also in order to stimulate economic growth along lines other than healthcare and anti-disease measures. We can cooperate in other areas of technology, and we will see quite a lot of them, especially derived elements of artificial intelligence and big data use. I mean, all of these will open the door for technologies far beyond whatever we have been dreaming of today. So again, I hope that a start will be made in that direction, and that our voices of today are not in vain. Thank you very much.